Welcome back. I'm Tim Tedder, and I've asked two guests to join us today. Jennifer Gingras, a therapist in the Central Florida area, will come in to wrap up our conversation about the book Runaway Husbands by Vicki Stark. You can find out more about Jennifer by following the links in the episode notes. I've also asked Elisa to talk about this issue from her perspective. Elisa told her story in episodes 2 and 4 of the podcast, and we used a few clips from those conversations in Runaway Husbands Part 1. What you don't know is that I had those conversations with Elisa 5 years ago. That was just about the time we stopped releasing our original seasons of The Recovery Room. So when we relaunched the podcast this year, I was eager to share that conversation with you. If you haven't heard those episodes, it'd be worth going back to listen. Elisa talks about her husband's affair, the pain and the chaos that followed, and the choices she had to make concerning her children and her husband's new partner. She and I will eventually have a longer conversation to give a fuller report of all that's happened with her, her husband, and her children in the past 5 years, so let this conversation be a bit of an appetizer until then. For this episode, we had a quick talk online, so please excuse the lack of audio quality, but you'll be able to hear just fine. Now check out the episode notes for more information, including information about our weekly newsletter. We offer more than just this podcast, and we have some great new resources coming out in the next months. So if you'd like to be encouraged and stay informed, we'd love to have you in our newsletter group. Be sure to rate and review this podcast and share it with others. We're thankful for everyone who's been listening and encouraging us. But enough said. Let's get to the good stuff.
Welcome to The Recovery Room, a podcast presented by affairhealing.com.
In this healing place, in this healing place.
Specifically, what I've asked you to talk about today is just to reflect on your past experience as someone who really fits this runaway husband victim, definition. You were surprised by the announcement of your husband that said he was done with the marriage. You didn't understand why that was happening. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit more about what you remember about that, kind of your impressions of it, and maybe what you would say to other women who might be facing the same thing.
A couple of things come to mind when I think about that time specifically. One of the things I think about is how my decisions and desires and what I wanted the outcome to be just wildly changed day to day. And there'd be days where I was so angry and I needed him out of the house immediately. And it was like, this is over, get out. I never want to see you again. And then the next day, my mindset would be in disbelief. Do I really want this to end? Is that really where I want this to go? And if he showed me a little bit of compassion or empathy or remorse or a sign that maybe his decision wasn't so definitive and he didn't actually want to leave, would I take him back? Would I want to try to work on it? It had me thinking, well, in reflection, this is the grief process because it's not linear. There's denial, disbelief, anger, all the things, but you don't process grief in a straight line. You bounce back and forth from stage to stage, and then eventually over time it stretches out and you're not going through all the stages in such rapid succession.
So there is an end to it eventually.
There is an end to it. There is, and yes, there is an end to it, but I have to say that this type of betrayal takes up residence in your body in a way. Like it resides in me still. And I don't think that will ever go away. There will always be triggers. Even now, 5 years later, just a few days ago, I caught myself in a mental cycle of, how could you do this? And then I have to stop myself, and it's like, you've moved on from this. You're beyond that. Like this isn't worth your time or your energy. And I'm able to set that aside and move on from it now. But yes, the grief eventually goes away. It's not constant like it
The
was at
intensity of
first.
it.
The
Yeah.
intensity of it goes
But I
away.
think you sharing that is really an important truth because I think sometimes we can be too guilty of kind of creating this overly optimistic expectation. If you do the work, you'll get through this and your life will actually be better because of all you'll learn. And there's some truth to that, I believe. But at the same time, it's hard. And some of the effects can last for a lifetime.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree with you that I'm very happy now. I'm not I'm in a great place. I have a great career. I have a huge support system. I have tons of friends. I have a very fulfilling social life. My kids are doing awesome. And I'm really, really happy with where I'm at. And I think I would be a different person had that relationship lasted and carried on. So both of these things can be true at the same time. Like I can be very fulfilled and super happy and looking forward and being really excited about the future still. And at the same time, I still carry grief with me for what happened. Those feelings can still come up in such a raw state, surprisingly, even years later. And usually when that happens, I don't try to shut them out. I take that 10 or 15 minutes to cry, to sit with it,
Yeah.
then I get on with my day.
I mean, after all this time, I already see it in your face right now that you can
Mhm.
still feel those things. Yeah. I know you can't really know what an alternative reality would have been, but do you wonder how this experience of being suddenly communicated via husband, I'm done with this marriage, and not understanding that and being confused by it and searching for answers, and it taking a little while for you to start getting some clarity into what was really going on. Do you think that would have made any difference if you'd had more warning ahead of time or if you'd known the truth, sooner?
I have 2 thoughts on that. I don't think that it's more warning that I needed. It was more honesty and transparency to why it was happening.
Hmm.
And so in my case, the breakup happened at the end of March. And if you had said to me that year on New Year's Day, "Hey, by the end of the first quarter, your marriage will be completely over. And by the end of May, you will have filed for divorce and your husband will have moved out of the house." I would have said that's impossible. That's absolutely impossible. And yet that's what happened. And I think through that microcosm of time, this pressure cooker of time, and the thing that still makes me so angry is how even with the intuition that I had and the poking holes in his stories and coming to him with saying, "Just tell me the truth." And he still would never tell me the truth until I discovered it for myself. That's very frustrating. And I wish that I had been shown the respect and the courtesy that I deserved from him to tell me cleanly and truthfully what's really happening so that I could get to the point of decision making faster. So it's not really more time, it's more truth, is what
Mm,
I needed. The other thing that I am so grateful for, and I cannot express enough how grateful I am that this was my situation, is I am very grateful that he didn't half-heartedly or haphazardly make a show of trying to make it work for a period of time to save face that eventually would have led to the same conclusion anyway. He was pretty steadfast in his decision from the moment that he said, "I'm not in this and I'm leaving." He really never wavered at all. I'm really glad for that. My recovery would have been much harder and much longer if he had made a phony show of trying to make it work so that there was a perception that at least he tried and it still didn't work. And so therefore it's the inevitable conclusion. I'm glad that didn't happen.
It's an interesting perspective that I really hadn't thought a lot about, but having a period of false hope where he's playing the game and leading things on, even though he knows the conclusion he's moving towards, as you said, that would have been a lot more wasted time, probably a lot more extended painfulness and uncertainty. And my guess is it probably does more damage to a person's ability to trust moving forward when, you think kind of what's going on and you find out, oh, that's not even true either. So yeah, I guess for someone who might find themselves in this circumstance, maybe that's a silver lining in a very dark cloud.
It is. It's an unexpected blessing in a terrible, awful circumstance. My perspective is that I am grateful that he didn't give me false hope and play a game. It got me on the track to recovery and to independence and to moving forward and building my new identity much faster.
We'll hear more from Elisa, but I wanted to take a few minutes to jump back into the conversation I had with Jennifer Gingras as we talked about Runaway Husbands. In the previous episode, we pointed out the two different ways a husband might depart from their marriage according to the book. The author described the first way as amputation without anesthetic. Without warning, the husband suddenly declares they're leaving, and this person, who was once a part of you, is now cut off. The second kind of departure happens more slowly, often referred to as death by 1,000 cuts. We spend a few minutes discussing those differences and why the husband is unlikely to provide much clarity about what's happening, as you'll hear later on from Elisa as well. Let's talk a little bit more about the difference in those two experiences. What would you say is unique about a woman who has been surprised by a husband who says, I don't love you anymore, or I don't want to be in this marriage anymore, and she didn't see it coming?
I think what's unique about that is there's no time to prepare. Whereas if there's death by 1,000 cuts, you're almost processing what's going on in the moment as it's happening. You have some explanation for, okay, if it does end, well, I can see where it led to that, or I could see the problems that we were having. Whereas when it's sudden, there's no preparation. It's like grief when you lose somebody very suddenly in like a car accident and not a prolonged illness. You have no time to make sense out of it. You have no time to prepare. You don't have time to put reinforcements in place to protect yourself. It's just so out of the blue that you just are thrown into this very traumatic survival mode, whereas both are painful, but there's this sense of I can make sense out of what happened when there was death by 1,000 cuts.
The amputation without anesthetic is often accompanied by the sense of I wasn't even aware there were problems, which is very confusing.
Sure. The other way where there's kind of been these problems over time, maybe they did try different things to work it out. Maybe they tried counseling. Maybe they tried going to friends or reading books. And so there was an opportunity to try to fix the issue. Whereas when it's this sudden amputation, the arm's gone. Yeah. You can't get it back. Yeah. Like it's gone. There's no way to fix it. And so then you're left also with, well, I have no control over this. It's just happened.
Now, in either case, suddenly finding out or being aware over time of problems that are being addressed, the wife may have no idea that there's an affair going on at the same time.
Sure.
So that's always the confusing aspect of it. Even when problems are being dealt with, many times it's like, well, I didn't think it was that bad that I'm not ready to leave the marriage. Why would you be ready to leave the marriage now? Would you say that the trauma is experienced a little bit different between the two?
I think that's hard to say because I don't want to compare trauma.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to say that one is worse or better than the other because both involve pain.
I think it's a different kind of trauma, though.
Yeah, I would say a different kind. And I want to make sure we're clear that we're not comparing and saying one's is better or worse, or one's, if your marriage ends this way, that you had it worse than the other person who didn't, because that's not helpful. But it is different.
Yeah, I think you made a good analogy. If we compare it to the death of someone, the sudden declaration is like someone that you thought was in perfect health, and then they're suddenly taken away from you, and you've had no time to prepare for it, and you're just dealing with that sudden loss and grief and confusion of that, as compared to someone who has been sick for a while and you've been dealing with that. You may not expect them to die,
Right.
but if they do, at least there's, but we're aware of something going on. It's still tremendous grief, but it has a little bit different context to it.
Yeah, they're both grief. They're both painful. It's not what you would want. It's just different.
Would there be any unique ways that you would try to help a client in those two scenarios?
I guess what comes to mind, knowing that every situation is unique, and it's not to say the person who knew it was coming is not in a similar position, but when you're kind of thrown into survival mode with no warning, I think the first step is really kind of creating some sort of stability around yourself. You're going to need support. You're going to need to reach out. You're going to need to take care of physical health, whether sleeping, eating. All of the times those things go out the window, and you need to do so with grace for yourself. So if you're not able to function as you did before, because you're probably not, the laundry's piling up or the dishes aren't getting done, or you're maybe eating one smoothie a day just to have some sort of nutrients, that you're doing so with grace for yourself and not beating yourself up, criticizing yourself for needing extra rest or needing support or needing time. And I think it's true for both people. But when it's death by a thousand cuts, a lot of times maybe you're doing that along the way. You're talking to people. Maybe you had a counselor you already feel comfortable going to. So there's already a sense of maybe having some of that in place. Not always. Whereas when it's sudden, you're trying to do that in the midst of this shock.
Mm-hmm. The person that's already been experiencing some of those things, like you say, has maybe already been a counselor. They have family or friends that they may have confided in who know there's something going on. And now they're finding out new information about it. But it's not all brand new. And like you say, just the surprise, shocking thing. That they're just standing there numb going, and I'm not even sure what this new reality is.
Correct, yeah.
One of the helpful points the author makes in the book is just reinforcing the fact that the reason given for the ending of a marriage is often not the real reason for leaving, primarily being an affair.
Right.
I mean, when an affair is going on, that is a tremendous influence on a person's choices. They are investing in that relationship. There's a connection they have with that person. It's something they don't want to give up. But when you talk to that individual, that gets so minimized. They say, well, that's just the thing that I'm experiencing on the other end of all the problems in my marriage. And I mean, I get it. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. If you were to say, I'm leaving my marriage because I have an affair or I've fallen in love with someone else, and some people will be that honest.
Right.
And I wish everybody would be that way. But once you make that declaration, I mean, all the fingers are pointed at you, and nobody likes to be the one who's blamed. Even though they may be aware, I'm the one that's driving this, no one wants to be the bad guy. And so we try to minimize that. We try to cast blame in other places. We try to make the fault, no, it's the marriage that's the problem, not choices I'm making. So this thing that probably in almost every circumstance is the primary drive, this other relationship that's going on, somehow gets shifted to, no, that's just a consequence or result of all these other problems that they tend to focus on instead. And the wife many times is sitting there really confused, like, well, I know we have problems, but the way you're raising the importance of these things, your experience of them, I didn't experience those things as that big and that important.
What's important for the wife to understand is she's searching for clarity, or she's searching for why this happened, is her husband is not going to give a clear answer because he is influenced by this other person or this other relationship. And so when he's giving all these seemingly meaningless answers and you're looking for meaning, you may have to accept you may never really know why, and that the clarity is not going to come from him.
Right. Don't look to your husband for the truth as long as he's involved with somebody else.
His perspective will always be skewed.
Yeah. And some of that will be very intentional in the way he wants to turn it. Some of it will just be his own method of justifying. And so he comes to believe those things himself. And so if you take his conviction of those things and you put a lot of stock into, well, maybe that is true, that's probably not accurate.
Right.
I'm saying over and over, don't look to the betraying partner as the arbiter of truth, because you probably are not going to get clarity from them.
One of the things that was hardest to accept was really coming to terms with the fact that he was not the place for me to go anymore for comfort or security or safety. The faster I could get to that place of understanding I won't get what I need from him, so stop trying, the easier it was to separate from this attachment and to be able to clearly make decisions that were to my benefit and to my kids' benefit. And it was hard to get to. It was a hard pill to swallow to look at this person who'd been my husband for almost 2 decades and to have to make this mental boundary, this barrier. Don't go to him. He does not care for you and is not looking out in your best interest. Seek comfort from a different trusted source. Do not seek it from him. And in doing that, it gave me stronger boundaries. It made it easier for me to think about what I needed and to protect my peace, to protect my well-being better, because I just had a firm separation of this is not the person you're going to. There were a lot of things that my ex said that was really rewriting this history that we had that I had loved. I really loved our journey and our family and what we had built and this identity that we had. And in this separation and all of this friction of a massive breakup, he said a lot of things that just were not my reality of our relationship. I hold on to those memories still of our past and the part that I loved, and I still love them. It was still reality. For my kids, they have memories of when mom and dad were together. They were old enough when we split up that they now have a before the divorce and after the divorce memories. And if I allowed those before the divorce memories to be tainted and to be rewritten, it could really affect my conversations with the kids when they want to talk about, hey, remember when? And we went and did this. And I still want them to have positive memories from that time too. Those things can be true at the same time. You can have these happy memories that you won't allow to be rewritten, and that person that was a part of them is a stranger now, a different person. Those two things can be true.
The book Runaway Husbands deals with other practical help for women who have experienced abandonment and betrayal. But I'd like to end with what the author has to say about victim mentality. Let me be clear. If you've been betrayed, you are a victim. You're a victim of that betrayal. It is not something you wanted or deserved. You were treated unfairly, unjustly. You did not make the choice, but you've had to bear its consequences anyway. The author, however, points out an important distinction between someone who has been a victim and someone who stays in a victim mentality. Here's how she defines victim mentality. Victim mentality means that throughout your life you focus on the wrong things done to you. And this narrative of the injured self serves to garner sympathy and support from others. By definition, it means you believe you're powerless to improve your future. I asked Elisa to tell her story because I witnessed the choices she made through tremendous confusion and pain. She'd be the first to tell you that she didn't do everything right. None of us do. But she determined that she would not stay a victim. She remains a fiercely strong woman, mother, and friend to those who are in her life. I asked her what else she would want to share with any other woman who finds herself in a similar place.
Really take that time to give yourself space. Don't feel pressure to make a decision or take action because of his timetable. Focus on what you need in getting all the information you need, getting the rest that you need, getting the support that you need, and make sure that you're ready and confident in your decision by the time you make it. Do not feel pressure to move quickly because that's what he wants. You have control. That was really important.
Fade